You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast that understands the trauma of being in the front row of a college glee club concert and having the corny soloist for In the Still of the Night make eye contact with you the entire time.
Okay.
Have you had that happen to you?
I haven't, but it was an episode of The Sex Lives of College Girls.
Oh, was it really? Oh my gosh. I haven't seen that episode, but I have lived that episode, and it was mortifying. Mortifying. It's like a game of pride chicken between you and the soloist. It's like,
well, and you can't leave.
You can't leave. You can, but it'd be terrible.
Awkward.
Yeah. You don't want to do it. Speaking of can't leaving, when are they going to take Donald Trump's passport away? I feel like at this point.
Oh my God. How does he still have his passport? He seems like the most prime candidate for turning that shit back in.
Yeah, flight risk. He is a flight risk. There is, as we're recording this on Wednesday morning, there's been a lot of rumblings all week that something is coming by the end of the week. And that's an indictment in the DC January 6th case?
DC January 6th case, yes.
Yeah. So, Jack Smith has been, working in his little workshop. For some reason, I just pictured Jack Smith working in like a Keebler-Elf tree.
Without question.
Yeah.
Like one of his assistants is discussing about whether or not to go become a dentist right now, just like Hermie in Rudolph. Like this is.
Yeah. I think it's very funny. The Jack Smith as like the special prosecutor being the one that is having the most, productive tenure is a sort of funny indictment of the way that the media ascribes narrative to things that it doesn't necessarily know what's going on about what's going on.
Also, don't you 100% think that Jack Smith is his just witness protection name?
Oh, it's not his real name. No way, man.
It can't be. It can't be.
His real name is like Mortimer Heyerbach or something like that. Yes.
And like a ancient Supreme Court justice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something off about him, but I'm not going to question it. So charges are probably going to be brought in the January 6th case in D.C., which would sort of like render all of Eileen Cannon's jiggery-pokery moot.
Yes.
If she's scheduling the trial to not take place until May of next year, which is in the middle of the primary season.
It's absurd.
And that's the trial for the stolen documents that takes place in Florida. It sort of like doesn't really matter what she does if there's a judge in D.C. that's like, yep, let's fast track this thing, get it all done ASAP, which is what the prosecution wanted. So we'll see what happens. You think we'll get Wednesday?
But truly, we may get Wednesday, but also Erin, God knows what he actually did when he was president. Like if there is anyone who needs their passport taken away, who knows what strange countries with other totalitarians he has made deals with.
I mean, we know
non-extraditable.
We know a few. Azerbaijan.
Yes.
I don't know if Azerbaijan has an extradition treaty, or is it Kazakhstan?
I don't know, but Ivanka was in one of those two countries sussing a hotel situation at some point. I remember seeing the pictures.
Oh, take her passport away too, man. What is she up to? Just trying to lay low?
Do we want her stuck here though? I mean, I feel like she can go if she wants to go.
Okay, fair enough. Ivanka, you can leave. Everybody else has to stay and face
everyone else
justice.
has to stay, including the eldest boy.
I'm the eldest boy!
The eldest boy. I had a weird dream about Kendall Roy last night.
It's because of Venus.
It's Venus is in retrograde, and it's hitting all of us really hard. It is a
what
weird
did Kendall
time.
Roy do in your dream?
He and I were shooting a film together, and I was like, I've never acted before. I don't know how to act. And he was like, just follow along with me because I'm a great actor.
That seems very realistic.
I was like, you are a great actor. I remember being like in a scene with him and being like, this is really easy because Jeremy Strong's a great actor. But yeah, that was my dream.
Then did you see the TikTok video or TikTok, whatever you call them, of I'm Only Ken?
I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be Ken. Is it my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility?
I'm Ken.
Yes.
But about Kendall Roy, I laughed so hard.
Oh yeah. It was the crossover event of the century, the Barbie Roy family crossover.
Anywhere else I'd be a 10, but here I'm only Ken.
Okay, let's get into the news stories we're going to talk about this week. So first, I want to get into this story, and not for the reasons that a lot of news outlets are getting into this story. That's the Carlee Russell case. So for people who aren't familiar, it would be difficult to not be familiar because the case is just so nationwide. But a quick refresher, Carlee Russell is a 25-year-old nursing student from Alabama who went missing 2 weeks ago after placing a disturbing 911 call wherein she said she saw a toddler wandering alone on the side of the freeway and was going to help the toddler. And soon after that, the call dropped and her abandoned car was found still running with her phone, Apple Watch, her wig, other personal belongings, and it sure looked like she had been abducted. But unlike a lot of cases where Black women go missing, this one was instantly in the national headlines, and that was thanks in part to the response on social media. As soon as it happened, I remember seeing it everywhere.
Same.
Everybody was talking about it, and it was, you know, people were talking about it on the news. You could hear about it on CNN. But then days later, she turned up at her family's house claiming, like, you know, everyone had assumed that she'd been abducted, and her family and loved ones were super relieved to have her back, obviously. But then soon after, questions about her story started surfacing. Like, why didn't any other cars report seeing an abandoned toddler wandering down the side of a busy interstate at the time Carlee placed the 911 call? Like, why was she the only one that saw the toddler? And then why did Carlee's internet search history in the days leading up to her alleged abduction include questionable things like, does it cost money to get an Amber Alert? And the movie Taken, and local bus tickets, and a couple other searches that authorities are not releasing to the public. They're saying out of respect for her privacy. Also, earlier in the day of the 911 call, did Carlee make a stop at Target and buy a bag of snacks? And when she vanished, the bag of snacks also vanished. So none of those things prove that she did anything, faked anything, whatever. People Google macabre shit all the time. If I were to vanish, people would be like, she was looking, why was she looking that up?
Why was Alyssa searching for pool towels before she left?
Can I use a hose to scare a hawk away from the nest of mourning doves in the tree? I'm tired of hearing it come and kill the babies. Like that sort of thing, you know?
Yeah, same.
And, but, you know, police said that they found no evidence that Carlee had been abducted. But I found that weird. When police were coming out publicly before we really knew one way or another, I found that to be odd. It's sort of like either you know that the story is fake or you don't, but don't like do a press conference where you like raise questions about the validity of a person's story. I don't know. I felt that it was, look, hindsight's 2020. I felt like it could have been handled better. The police are notoriously not very good at handling a lot of things.
I mean, you know, a lot of times these smaller places have to go prime time when things like this happen, and they're not necessarily ready for prime time. And so they kind of think they're supposed to go out and do something. And I think a lot of police forces have been sort of, you know, admonished for not acting quickly and sharing information with the community. So I feel like if we were to err on the side of giving them the benefit of the doubt, you know, they were trying to get out there. But
I guess maybe the messaging could have been more like, we do not see an ongoing community threat.
Which they did say. They did say that
which
too.
Which is important, I think, that you don't want people living in fear, because I saw a lot of stuff on social media.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, the toddler used to lure kidnapping victims is such a pervasive trope. And like, I'm sure it's happened before, but it has become such a, like, I've seen so much stuff of like mostly white affluent women saying like, they'll if you see a baby in a Target parking lot, if you see a, you know, if you see a baby seat on the side of the road, don't stop. And it's sort of like it's not an urban legend because it is based in some truth, but it's really overblown in the way that people think about it. But then on Tuesday, Carlee Russell admitted to her attorney that she had made the whole thing up. And the police chief of the town of Hoover, Alabama, said, "We ask for your prayers for Carlee as she addresses her issues and attempts to move forward, understanding that she made a mistake in this matter." So we don't know why she made it up. There's a lot of chatter that it was because something about her ex-boyfriend. who is now definitely her ex-boyfriend.
Her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, her super ex-boyfriend, who has weirdly also been very public during this whole thing, like releasing statements.
He was very public. He took to Instagram immediately, asking people to repost and that her case was not getting nearly enough attention, and that everybody had to, pray for her and help find her. And, he was very public.
Yeah. I mean, and the police say that they knew Russell's story was a hoax since last week. And it just all kind of fell apart. And I've heard and seen people talking about how, it's rare that people take the disappearance of Black women seriously. And it's a shame that this super high profile case of a Black woman disappearing turned out to be a hoax. And I think the fear is that people will not take Black women's disappearances seriously anymore. I just wanted to make an important note that while it is rare for people to fake kidnappings, it is not unheard of. In fact, it's more common than you would probably think. And the people who do it, no race, no color, no gender. I mean, if you recall just earlier this year, or no, last year, a woman from California named Sherry Papini faked her own kidnapping in 2016 and got sentenced to 18 months in jail because of the fake. I have, in 2002, there was a 45-year-old guy named Dr. Mark Salerno who claimed he was kidnapped in Phoenix, Arizona. He was found in the trunk of his car in Pennsylvania a few days after that. It was a nationwide thing. People were like, oh my gosh. And then it turns out he told the FBI that men took his car and forced him into a van and then locked him into his trunk. But then somebody said that they saw him lock himself into the trunk. And he did it because of financial reasons. There's a woman, a Canadian politician named Dar Hetherington, who in 2003 disappeared from a conference outside of Great Falls, Montana, turned up a few days later in Las Vegas, said she'd been kidnapped and abused. And they looked into it and they're like, that didn't happen. And she ended up getting convicted of criminal mischief. I mean, people fake kidnappings sometimes. Sometimes
people
it's for
fake a lot
reasons.
of things.
People fake having cancer. People fake having cancer.
Yes, they do.
I mean, I don't think that it says anything bad about us as a society that we trust when people say, like when there's a story of someone being kidnapped and we're like, oh my goodness, let's look for them. Like,
let me say,
good.
I don't think that you and I are like American heroes by any stretch of the imagination, but here's how I feel.
I suck.
If someone says they're fucking missing, I am going to always err on the side of believing them. And in the 1 in 100,000, 1 million, whatever chance that they might be telling a fib, that they might have staged this shit themselves, it is the exception, not the rule.
That's not, that's on them, not me. Like I'm at peace with myself as someone who believes people when they tell me that they have cancer or when someone's been kidnapped, or like I'm fine with being a sort of person.
Imagine what it says about you as a person if someone tells you they have cancer and you're like, why don't you tell me more about your symptoms?
Yeah. Can I see your
tell me your doctor's name?
Yeah. Oh, really? You were at the appointment last week? That's weird because you were posting.
Thought you were at the Ivy. Yeah, that's so weird.
Weird. I just think like people are going to take from this story what they're going to take from this story.
Yeah,
but I think it's important.
Exactly.
It's important to remember that people fake crimes for a whole bunch of reasons. And some of them, oh gosh, I was looking at fake kidnappings this morning. There was a Brazilian soccer player. Yeah, I know. This is a great Wikipedia dive.
I love when you go down the rabbit hole.
I know. So there was a Brazilian soccer player in 2011 named Somalia who claimed he'd been kidnapped at gunpoint before he was robbed, but it was revealed later that he was just late for practice. And there's the club that he played soccer for had a 40% wage drop penalty in case of tardiness. So he was like, I was kidnapped so that he wouldn't.
I mean, I do hope that if you fake being kidnapped or having cancer, it's for a better reason than that.
Well, I've got a worse reason than that. And this is very sad. There's a woman named Joanna Grenside who was an aerobics teacher from England. She staged her own disappearance a few days before Christmas in 1992. And that's because she had an eating disorder and didn't want to be around Christmas food.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So she pretended she'd been kidnapped. You know who else faked their own kidnapping? Agatha Christie.
That I knew.
Agatha Christie faked her own kidnapping because she was I think she was trying to make her husband mad or her ex
mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
It was something like that. So I'm just, I'm not going to say shine on, you crazy diamond, to any of these people because you shouldn't waste law enforcement resources. But, it's not common, but it's also not unheard of for people to fake kidnappings.
And also, usually the reasons people are doing this, aside from the soccer player and his wage thing, are like usually pretty sad. Like if someone gets to the point where they're faking their own kidnapping, things have gone awry in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay, well, let's move on to a story that's got some widespread implications. Alyssa, take it away.
Erin, this one really is things that make you go, This year, Erin, the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, or ABOG as they're known, is hosting its OBGYN certifying exams in, of all places, Texas.
What?
Yes.
Wait,
yes.
Are we talking about the Texas with the floating barriers, SB8?
Yeah. That Texas.
Vigilante anti-abortion justice.
All those things. Bounty hunters. Yeah, you name it.
Okay.
For the last couple of years, they've been doing it remotely, so they could have kept doing it remotely. But instead, ABOG is putting OBGYNs' lives in danger by forcing them to go to a state that is full of armed, anti-abortion, MAGA Republicans, and has criminal and civil penalties for people providing and getting abortions. Now, getting board certified is voluntary, but most hospitals and practices require it. And being board certified, here's one for you, Erin. Let this one sink in. Being board certified requires candidates to delineate cases they've worked on, including abortions, while they're standing in Texas. Okay?
Why are they doing this?
This
is like what?
This is so, and like a lot of the online stuff is like, well, ABOG is based in Texas. This is where ABOG exists.
Move.
But also, who cares? Then like you should move, or you should just keep doing this shit remote or in any other state where practitioners don't have to decide whether or not they are literally going to open themselves up to being arrested and targeted. So the other thing is they have to discuss these cases with a panel of examiners. And if the OBGYNs mention abortions when writing out their cases, things could get contentious. If they don't, then our country's lack of abortion training would persist. Like there are so many. Okay. So one thing, ABOG sent out a note. Are you ready for this, Erin? ABOG was telling candidates that they, quote, should not be at legal risk if they come to Texas. Should not. Not won't. Should not. But the group hasn't addressed the danger for doctors in pro-choice states who ship abortion medication to Texas patients via telehealth. Potentially, they could be at tremendous criminal risk. And something uniquely terrifying about this whole situation is that there is now a known address where hundreds of OBGYNs, many of whom perform abortions, all descending at the same time in a state filled with anti-abortion sentiment and few gun regulations and loads of mass shootings. So, if you're a provider, what are you going to do, Erin?
So does every provider have to go every year? Is this just for newly like trained?
It seems like
OBGYNs?
you have to, it seems like there is some recertification every year.
What the fuck? So can they change this? Is there anything that can be done about this?
It doesn't seem, I mean, I think that the only thing that can be done about this is that like practices and hospitals outside of Texas would have to say that they don't have to be recertified. That feels like the only thing to do. But like most people say, foregoing the exams isn't really an option. You have to be board certified in order to be granted privileges in most hospitals and medical practices.
Oh my God. This is so stupid.
Because also, here's another thing in the circle of life here. Health plans also tend to give board-certified doctors higher insurance reimbursement. Mm-hmm.
Who is giving them money? That's what I want to know. Like, what's going on with ABOG that they can't just... It makes no sense to have your headquarters in a state that is aggressively
it makes no
against...
sense.
No. I feel like there's more to the story. Hopefully we can...
To come out.
Yeah, because as it stands right now, the information that we have, the actions of the organization do not make sense. And their unwillingness to accommodate very real fears and concerns that its members have. Also, it doesn't make sense. So hopefully we'll learn more because this is crazy.
Crazy.
Okay. Speaking of woke propaganda, the Barbie movie opened this past weekend, shattering records, earning $162 million in its first 3 days. It's not only the most profitable opening weekend of 2023, but of any woman-directed film ever. Snaps to
Love to
Greta
see it.
Gerwig. Love to see it. Crowds showed up. They showed up in style. People were dressed up. And of course, you know, conservatives were absolutely losing their marbles over it. I honestly think I had to listen to like Ben Shapiro's dumb 43-minute rant about Barbie, which contains so many words because he talks so fast. He's got a very annoying man to listen to. And I don't recommend anybody listening to him ever. I feel like a lot of conservative outrage about like Barbie being woke is fake because Barbie and Mattel for years have been doing things like releasing Barbies with varying body types and Barbies with disabilities and Barbies with... So like they're only mad because this movie's popular and they're chasing clout. Like that's...
Yes. They see every one of their brothers talking about this and they're like, let us get in on the action, manufacture some outrage about a lovely, entertaining movie.
Yeah, I saw Caitlin Flanagan, the writer from The Atlantic, with a sarcastic tweet this weekend about like how we must treat it like it's the, you know, what is the Epic of Gilgamesh or something like that. And I think that, you know, she is correct that there is a lot of attention being paid to the film, but I also think that it's like that view betrays an ignorance to how media works right now. Attention begets attention. Eventually it becomes its own little gravitational field and the attention itself generates more attention. So as a news outlet, as a person trying to get people to look at what you're talking about something that everyone else is talking about, even if you don't have an authentic connection to the material yourself, is a way to get yourself attention. That's just them's the breaks. That's just how the media works. I mean, I worked at a couple digital shops, and SEO is a thing. You know, like you want people to find your content, and if people are talking about Barbie and they're reading about Barbie, and you're putting stuff up about Barbie, then you're in the mix. You know, you want to be in the mix. It's also,
why is it so outrageous to be talking about a movie that resonates with a lot of people, about a director who had an incredible take on something? Like, I couldn't have imagined what the movie was going to be like until I actually saw it. And studios that put millions and millions of dollars behind advertising. Like, why don't we have this like level of angst over like Marvel movies?
Because, okay, I feel as though there are parallels here between the Barbie movie. I mean, loose parallels. I don't want to say it's like a one-to-one comparison. But the summer that Black Panther came out, Black Panther was a good movie that appealed, that looked different than all the other Marvel movies, appealed to a new audience, brought people in to theaters, and there had been like a complete lack of superhero movies that centered Black characters, you know? And this was a movie that was really well done and it did that. And so people were like, I want that. I'm going to go see this. This is a movie that centers girlhood and takes girlhood seriously. Discusses a toy that like a lot of girls and women were playing with. And like when we were interviewing Karina Longworth on the show, she said, you know, movies are mostly made to appeal to like teenage boys. And finally, there's a mass market, high budget, highly marketed movie that was made by and for women with like a female perspective. And I think we were all just like thirsty for something like that. And so the fact that it's cleaning up at the box office should not be a surprise, because it's like such a well executed, perfectly understood take on a toy. Like, what did you think about the movie? Did you like it?
I really enjoyed it. Everything about it, from the joy of walking into the movie theater, and I saw it in a small movie theater here in upstate New York, to seeing all the people who came out to see it. There were lots of older women, like grandmas in my theater. There were very young children in my theater. And it was like everyone was just there to enjoy the movie. And everybody was there for a different reason. And I thought it was remarkable. I thought that it was so hard for me to envision what the movie was going to be like, even after seeing the trailers. And it was very, like, poignant.
Yeah, I thought there were parts of the plot that like didn't quite make sense to me, but
yeah, I agree.
It made more sense as if I just sort of like zoomed out and thought about it as like a meditation on the way that girlhood and Barbie specifically sets little girls up to imagine a world that centers them and their friends and what they want and what they're interested in. And when little girls play with dolls, they don't necessarily like incorporate men into their play because they don't see a purpose for it. And then you get to an age where you're told, actually, in the real world, men are the most important. Boys are the most important. And you need to do things for men and boys. It's not the world that you played when you were a little girl of just you and your friends having a fabulous time. And like, Ken's around, but like, we don't really care what he does. We're not going to like not let him do stuff, but like, we don't really care about him. You know,
Ken's Ken.
Exactly. Like, okay. Well, I mean, and you know, I wrote about this for the Daily Beast. Like, for every 7 Barbies sold, there's 1 Ken sold. Like, girls just like playing with Barbie more than they like playing with Ken, and that's fine. But eventually that world of play it bumps up against the world where like men are suddenly told to be the center. And actually men take things where they're not the center as like insulting and anti-man, instead of just like, no, it's not anti-man. It's just indifferent to men. And I thought
it's just indifferent. You're exactly right.
It's just indifferent. And like, but men take anything there's certain types of men, not all men. # not all men. But there's certain types of men, specifically the types of men that like, you know, every week have to get their little rage boner rubbed out to, you know, Ben Shapiro or Matt Gaetz or whatever, who think that anything that isn't about and for them is insulting to them.
Yeah, totally.
And that, to me, the response almost seems like a meta joke that the movie meant to make. Like it feels like the movie sometimes did things where it was like, we're trying to get this response to make the point that the movie is making. Right. That being said, I didn't quite get some of the plot pivots. I was like, okay, why do they have to go back to Barbie world now? Like,
no, I didn't understand. No, that's true. Also, I felt like I didn't need so many of the Will Ferrell and the men. Mostly all the scenes that focused on the men, as is true with real Barbie. I was like, it's okay. I'm all right. I could have used a little less of the Kens. It's fine.
I was happy to see Jamie Demetriou, the star of Stath Lets Flats, which is one of the funniest shows of the last 5 years. It's on HBO. It's on Max if you guys want to watch it. Stath Lets Flats. It is so fucking funny. He's in that movie, but he doesn't get to be hilarious. And that made me sad.
You know who was hilarious? Michael Cera. Alan. I thought he was a very funny character.
He was just so dead in the eyes. It was great.
Totally dead in the eyes.
Ryan Gosling's performance was iconic. I'm going to say that. Just
iconic.
Iconic. And Margot Robbie is Barbie. She is Barbie.
And Issa Rae is my president. I'm happy. Oh my God. I was thrilled with that casting.
Yeah, that was great. Well, if you haven't seen the Barbie movie, definitely recommend going to see it in a theater because you do want to see Barbie Land huge. You want to see it huge. You can see it small at your house too, but go to the theater, support.
Huge is better.
Yeah, huge is better for sure.